Dozens of executive orders, documents, and the reversal of many decisions of his predecessor. New United States President Donald Trump started to act immediately following his inauguration. The most pressing issues, migration policy, foreign policy, and the economy, came first. There were also social accents which clearly indicate the direction of this presidency. He promised this from the start of the election campaign. He had been preparing for this day since his election victory. The new administration entered the White House with a ready-made agenda. On Donald Trump's desk in the first hours after he was sworn in, key executive orders paving the way for the implementation of his election promises arrived for signature.
Revoking nearly 80 destructive, radical executive actions of the previous administration. They'll all be null and void within about, 5 minutes? Is that them over there? 5 minutes? And next, to gain immediate control of the vast federal, out-of-control bureaucracy.
The U.S. economy is a whole spectrum of documents and regulations that Trump is putting into circulation. First and foremost, however, is the lifting of restrictions on oil and gas production.
The inflation crisis was caused by massive overspending and escalating energy prices, and that is why today I will also declare a national energy emergency. We will drill, baby, drill.
In addition, the introduction of tariffs on foreign imports. We are talking primarily about Europe. It is possible that there will be conditions to which, in order to make money from exports, the European Union will have to agree.
They're tough. They're very tough. They don't take our cars. They don't take our farm product. They don't take almost anything. And yet we take their cars and we take their farm product. We take a lot from them. So, we have like a $300 billion deficit with the European Union. So we'll straighten that out with either tariffs or they have to buy our oil.
On security and internal and international issues, two decisions are key. The first is to impose a state of emergency on the southern border, and the second is to stop foreign aid funding.
We're thinking in terms of 25% on Mexico and Canada because they're allowing vast numbers of people. Canada's a very bad abuser also. Vast numbers of people to come in and fentanyl to come in.
As analysts point out, Trump is focusing on issues that resonated strongly during the election campaign.
And by the way, the capital...
Trump is a man who, let's remember, was raised and grew up in an environment of a particular development business, where you simply have to keep your word, and if you lose your reputation, you're out of business and you lose money. And this is one side of the mentality. On the other side, it is extremely important that he takes his constituents very seriously. The unambiguous definition of two genders with regard to the federal administration's actions is also an important change. Officials, according to Trump, are supposed to focus on their work, not on coming up with more pronouns. On top of that, he is also ordering the return of all federal employees from remote work and halting personnel moves until he takes full control of the administration.
The next item, sir, is a freeze on all federal hiring, excepting the military and a number of other excluded categories, again, until full control of the government is achieved and we understand the objectives of government going forward.
Trump also took issue with his decision to withdraw from the climate agreement and the World Health Organization. In both cases, he justified the decision on the basis of cost, which the United States cannot afford in the face of increasing competition from China. He is also generally skeptical of any international institutions, as he believes that the interests of individual countries count, and that such naive faith in the ability of institutions to solve the world's problems does not stand up to a clash with empiricism. In addition to these key decisions, there are a number of minor ones that will affect the functioning of the administration in the first days of the new government. What is clear, however, is that the United States is taking an entirely new course away from left liberal policies, and according to many commentators, is just marking the beginning of the global twilight of the leftist agenda. The first day after the swearing-in of the 47th President of the United States, Donald Trump, is busy with news flowing in from all over the world. One of the most important decisions, the withdrawal from the Paris Accords, the Green Deal, is resonating strongly in the European Union. What are the reactions? Today I took a closer look at the situation.
and export American energy all over the world. We will be a rich nation again, and it is that liquid gold under our feet that will help to do it. With my actions today, we will end the Green New Deal and we will revoke the electric vehicle mandate, saving our auto industry and keeping my sacred pledge to our great American auto workers.
President Donald Trump will withdraw the United States from the Paris Climate Agreement, the White House officially announced today. In doing so, he fulfilled his main promise.
President Biden's actions yesterday on offshore drilling, banning offshore drilling, will not stand. I will reverse it immediately. It'll be done immediately. And we will drill, baby, drill. And we're going to be drilling in a lot of other locations. And the energy costs are going to come way down. They'll be brought down to a very low level.
This decision will put the United States outside the 2015 pact, in which governments, except for Iran, Libya and Yemen, agreed to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. How has the European Union reacted?
In this spirit, we will need to work together to avoid a global race to the bottom, because it is in no one's interest to break the bonds of the global economy. Rather, we need to modernize the rules to sustain our ability to produce mutual gain for our citizens.
The United States is the world's largest producer of oil and natural gas, thanks to a multi-year production boom in Texas and New Mexico, among other places, fueled by fracking technology and high global prices since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The European Union, in response, is preparing a report on the competitiveness of the European Union.
And on that basis, next week, the European Commission is presenting our roadmap, the competitiveness compass, which will drive our work for the next 5 years.
The European People's Party is calling for a revival of the EU's faltering economy, which will require the removal of renewable energy targets. China has also expressed its concerns. China is concerned about the US announcement to withdraw from the Paris Agreement. Climate change is a common challenge facing all of humanity. No country can stay out of it, and no country can be immune from it. As president-elect, Donald Trump promised to repeal Joe Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, which initially included some $400 billion in new spending and credits to accelerate America's transition to a green energy economy. This is a bad decision for the world because global warming is a fact. We have had another record year, which we have also felt ourselves. This will involve more and more heat waves with increasing salt water. The whole European Green Deal was a project with one very simple goal: to make Europe dependent on Russian gas, which will be distributed by Germany. This is very clear to those who look into this system. That's what Nord Stream was for. That's what all these activities were for. We know that with green energy, it is impossible to build a stable energy system today. What does this mean for the economy of the European Union, including Poland? If this course is maintained, we are threatened with the liquidation of industry throughout Europe, not just in Poland, because there is no way that European industry can withstand, for more than 2 or 3 years, higher energy prices at 2 or 3 times the prices the Americans or Asians have. If there is no withdrawal from this insanity, European industry will simply disappear, especially here, since Poland is not ready for so-called zero carbon and a complete shift away from a coal-based economy in this decade. Poland will need coal in the 2020s. Accelerating this transition in the 2020s may even be dangerous. Although Donald Trump's presidency is only 24 hours old, it has already forced EU elites to reflect. Both EU and Polish rulers appear to be unready for a substantive dialogue about the underlying assumptions of the global warming theory and the departure from the Paris Accords, at a loss for the economy.
Moments after Donald Trump, the 47th President of the United States, officially returned to power, he began making changes in the world's most powerful country. Among other things, gender ideology, the Green Deal, and favoring illegal immigrants are going into the trash in America. The question is how the changes introduced by President Trump's administration will affect the situation in Poland. This is a very important time. They will have a gigantic impact in our country, but not in a 4-year perspective, but actually here and now. This administration is immediately going full steam ahead on the tracks that will carry out this agenda that is close to us. Because the policies already being put in place by Donald Trump are at the opposite pole to those pursued for years by Brussels and Poland under Donald Tusk. If Europe does not fundamentally change its policies in almost all areas, it will collapse, become an open-air museum. Brussels' policies with the promotion of the Green Deal, gender ideology, the Migration Pact, or special privileges for illegal immigrants, which until recently were defended by politicians in power today. I ask in the context of your actions at the border. We all saw you running around with that bag. Of course, there have always been migrations, and there will be migrations, and they are a powerful challenge for both Europe and the States. Certainly, my opponents are in a very difficult situation. Well, after all, it is known that politically for them, this is a very big problem. Just because they speak differently today doesn't mean that they think differently. They think the same way, only from such a utilitarian point of view. They want to quickly change the skin in which they walk. This will not work. Because many politicians of the ruling coalition have, to their credit, to put it mildly, unfortunate opinions about the President of the United States, and they are led by Donald Tusk. Trump and his dependence on Russian services today is no longer debatable. This is not my assumption. This is the result of an investigation by the U.S. services. The U.S. services do not rule out that Trump was even recruited by the Russian services 30 years ago. They are in a quandary now because they have insulted Donald Trump repeatedly, called him names, said he is a Russian agent, and now they have to pretend, at least for a few months until the election, they will want to do so, to say that they have great relations with the Republicans as well. This is obviously untrue. I don't see any problems here for cooperation, due to some political statements in the past. I understand that you want to make an issue out of this. You want to emphasize the importance of these words, while this is really not reflected in reality. Such words look a bit like conjuring reality, because it is rather the United States, the world's largest superpower, that is our country's strategic partner. Others argue in line with the official coalition message of the day, that it will change, but for the worse. I think that some Poles who are in Chicago and are there illegally voted for Donald Trump or encourage their friends to do so, and may be strongly surprised if they are immediately sent back to Poland, because this is the decision Donald Trump made and said he would start with Chicago. No, Trump said he would start at the border with Mexico, and he calls illegal migrants those who have illegally crossed the border. In the case of the Poles, that's impossible, so the topic is simply created for the internal politics of the Tusk coalition. Other politicians of the current government argue that not much will change for Poland after Donald Trump comes to power. Americans elected their president, and we should strive for and have excellent contacts with the United States. We are in a situation where we can say to Rafał Trzaskowski, Donald Tusk, Radosław Sikorski, gentlemen, you are in a black hole. One of Donald Trump's traits is absolute vindictiveness. Donald Tusk has made Trump and America his personal enemy. Whatever he says today, he can't undo it, especially since he is not the decision maker. Those decisions are made elsewhere. He won't be allowed to make a change because he will cease to be prime minister overnight. The impact of the change of power in the United States on our country can already be seen in the changing political landscape in Poland. We have had signs of this for a good few weeks now, in the form of an increase in support for law and justice, which is associated with a party that locates itself closer to Donald Trump's policies than the Civic Platform. The elections in May will decide who will be Poland's head of state. Relations with the world's greatest superpower will also be at stake. It is in the interest of Poland and in the interest of free Europe that Ukraine defends itself against the aggressor, against Russia. This was emphasized at the Ukrainian House by Polish President Andrzej Duda, who is in Davos for the World Economic Forum. The Polish leader recalled that some in Europe expected the war in Ukraine to last 3 days. However, it will soon be 3 years. Andrzej Duda stressed that the war must end as soon as possible, but it must not end in an indifferent way. It is an obvious matter that this war cannot end in victory for Russia. This defeat will be the rebuke of its imperial ambitions, the fact that they will be stopped and not satisfied. For me, it will mean the existence and restoration of an independent, sovereign Ukraine within its internationally recognized borders. And I firmly believe that you think the same. The war in Ukraine affects the entire free world, Ukraine's first vice prime minister pointed out.
Following the butterfly effect principle, the Russia studied in Ukraine affects not only peace in our country, but peace in your country as well.
President Andrzej Duda's visit consists, of course, of meetings with world leaders. Today, among others, with the Prime Minister of Montenegro. But Davos is also about business. Hence the president's talks with the CEO of PPF Group, a telecommunications and biotechnology company. On the second day of the World Economic Forum, Andrzej Duda ended with a gala dinner hosted by the executive chairman of the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab. Adrian Borecki, Republica Davos.